To change the trajectory of our life, we have to be inside the room where things happen. We cannot change or create change standing outside the door. The challenge for many, however, is overcoming physical, emotional, social, and economic barriers just to get in the room. Now, my guest today is Barbara Baker, and she not only shows students how to get into the room, but she also shows them what to do once they're inside to make a difference in their life. Let's meet Barbara. Now, Barbara is the director of TRIO Support Services, Student Support Services at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, known as MCLA. During her college years, she was a TRIO student at Kansas State University in the little town known as, I love this name, the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. Barbara's a very proud first-generation college student and a TRIO alum. She says TRIO works. And her motto is, you're your strongest when you ask for help, and that is so true. Among her identities as a first-generation college student, Barbara is also a colon cancer survivor. Her journey on cancer solidified her belief in how precious and important our time on earth is. Barbara, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Thank you, Frank. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, Barbara. Share a little bit more about your background growing up and how you got to where you got to.
All right, sounds good. Well, I grew up in another place called Clarinda, Iowa, and maybe some people recognize that. That's seen as the kind of the birthplace of Glenn Miller, if you're into big band.
My dad's favorite band guy.
Yes. Glenn Miller was born there, and then he made a quick transition out with his family, is my understanding. But as you can imagine, I was born in the 60s, so it was kind of a turbulent time, especially in Iowa, very rural community. So not a lot of exposures to differences when it comes to social identities. I identify as Black and Native American, and we were one of 7 families of color. So I went to Garfield Elementary School. I'm just using this as an example of how when the room is not set up for you, that's the best way to put it. But I was immediately put outside the school building. There was some of us that were low income, students of color. We were kind of funneled outside the building in a trailer. When we didn't read well, we didn't do math well, so that was kind of maybe quote unquote our punishment. We'd go out in this trailer, and we had a very wasn't the best teacher, very angry teacher. I can remember having my desk swung around and kind of being shook when I didn't get answers correctly. So that was kind of my early beginning to school.
Wow.
And I did quit high school. My brother died tragically in that town, and my mother was very determined. She wanted me to finish my high school diploma, and she moved to Manhattan, Kansas. She had roots in Junction City, Kansas, with her own family, and she knew there was a military base there. She knew it was a college town, so she just wanted me to finish my high school diploma. And she told me, from there, you can decide what you want to do with your life, but I can get my high school diploma. I think that paves the path to opportunities. So kicking and screaming, I kind of moved to Manhattan with my mom, finished my high school diploma, and then I went to work in a fast food restaurant that's kind of equivalent. It was Hardee's. It's equivalent to McDonald's or a Burger King. Didn't take me long to figure out that working minimum wage, you're not going to have your own car. You're not going to be able to live out on your own. And I was lucky that Hardee's was in the college community of Kansas State University. So I got to see college students coming into the restaurant, and I got to see them studying. And I love poetry. From the time that I was in Iowa, I started writing poetry because I know it was my escape. It was my release from what I was going through in my life. And so I decided to take a poetry class. Had a really great teacher who kind of started connecting me in. She was like, Barbara, you deserve more than working at a fast food restaurant. College opens that pathway. And I was like, me, I can't go to college. I can't afford college. And she kind of just opened up the pathway to TRIO, because Kansas State University had a TRIO program called the Educational Supportive Services. It's still there, been there about 40 years. And so I got involved with TRIO, started learning about financial aid. It was really, I have to say, it was really my creative writing teachers, and that opened the pathway to me, because I was able to write. They taught me about writing. They opened up my path to literature. I got to see myself in literature, because they opened me up to different poets like Andrea Lord. Who else did we study? I'm having one of those senior moments. We also it was Maya Angelou. I'm trying to bell hooks. So I got an opportunity to just really learn and see myself as a woman of color in the literature that they presented. And so it really got me started. I got to meet Dr. Butler, who was the director of, in that era, it was called Minority Affairs. Now it's called the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. But Dr. Butler was really inspiring. She was involved with theater. She got me involved with theater. I got to take some theater courses with another mentor, Doc Fetter. So I guess I'm going to say that it was really my professors who knew the resources, and they knew how to guide me to those resources. And when I was saying I wasn't smart enough, they were helping me know that I was smart enough. And Dr. Butler's the one that encouraged me to get my master's in student affairs. And that was the master's that helps, and it still exists. It helps individuals study to be in higher education. So you can be a director of TRIO, you can be a director of multicultural affairs, you can be an academic advisor, you can work in financial aid. It just kind of opens up pathways into higher education careers. So that got me started. Then I went to work for TRIO for about 4 years at K-State. And then from there, I decided to pursue my doctorate degree and come to UMass Amherst. So there I was feeling a little bit more confident. And that got me going in wanting to pursue continue to pursue my education so that I could work with students. So that's a little bit about my academic career. I want to give you a chance to ask questions.
Sure. No, it's quite a journey. And to come from where you were at, and the fact that one teacher completely discouraged you from education, and yet another teacher, and the importance of good teachers really stands out. That this teacher saw something and reached out and helped you. So I love that, because it flows right into your motto about TRIO. It works for everyone. All right. So how does it work for everyone? How does it work?
It sees you. It validates you. It makes you authentic. One of the signature pieces of TRIO is that you get to have the academic coaching. So you're working with someone that truly does believe in you. You get to meet with that person weekly. That person is the person who introduces you to campus resources. It's the person when you say, I don't know, I haven't had any experience with time management, I don't know what this means to put a planner together. There's no quote unquote stupid questions with that coach. You can go in as a first generation college student and you can ask any question that you want. I don't know what it means to be in a classroom. I don't know what it means to go talk to a faculty member. How do I go in and how do I talk to this faculty member? I tell the story, and this is through my own students that I had a first year seminar class that I taught. And a student said that he saw his faculty member out and they were grocery shopping. And he said, oh, they go out and grocery shop, they eat? Yes, yes, they eat. They're human, just like everybody else. So what Trio does for you is it humanizes that experience of higher education, that your professors have once been college students. They went through challenges in their life. Even the staff that you work with, staff that might mean financial aid office, a financial aid director, or a director or a staff member that works with student affairs and leadership. All of them have had the experience of being college students. So it demystifies that journey for you. And it helps you know of the resources that you have. It helps, we do workshops here with our Trio program. We do financial literacy workshops. And that was a part of my education too, that teaches you about what does it mean to have a budget? What does it mean when you're borrowing money and debt management? When do you have to be accountable for those loans that you're taking out? How do you establish credit for yourself? So Trio's that it's very holistic in how it approaches things with you, how to have relationships. Our students that live on campus, they have to get used to having roommates. And what does that mean to have a roommate? What does that mean for yourself? What kind of responsibility do you take, and what kind of ownership do you take with your roommate? So it teaches you how to be a part of a community and what it means to thrive as a part of that community. So we know Trio has a proven history of working because it started in the 60s and it started evolving started with Upward Bound, it started with student support services, talent search, which I wish would have been available when I was in middle school, that works with middle school students. It starts with that early awareness, and the earlier you can give students that awareness, the better it is for them, because it plants that seed that they can go to college and they can succeed.
I remember growing up, President Kennedy, I believe it was, who said, "A rising tide lifts all boats." And I think that's exactly what we're doing when this program came into play, is it benefits everyone. I'm a first generation student also, and it benefits everyone because it changes your mindset. I thought growing up, you're going to work in steel, or you're going to work in the railroad, or you're going to join the military. And that's it. And that's all there is.
Yeah.
And it opens up so many more doors, because if I move up, then maybe my brothers and sisters and my family, and you can break that cycle. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You told me so many students, and it's the family that also you have to indoctrinate, correct? Because they're terrified. They don't know what this means. And why is he going to school for 4 years? And how come he's not working? And we need help. How do you help them?
Mm-hmm. And, as much as my mother wanted me to finish high school, she wasn't sure about this whole next step of college, because that was a part of my family, that strong work ethic. You go to work. High school pays the way to go to work. But it wasn't looking at what are the limitations of high school, because you're not going to make the kind of salary to take care of yourself. And that's the ultimate goal. Or it doesn't look at the different ways that you can get the kind of salary that you need to project yourself out into the world and be successful with it, just having your basic needs taken care of: food, shelter, clothing, those kinds of things. So I think that's the importance. And you're right, the family is it's a very important component of that. We're trying harder and harder to work on some programming here at MCLA that will also include the family as a part of getting students prepared for college, because if we can help the family understand a little bit more what the process is like, what's it like when they come home after their first semester or during the holidays, and you see these changes, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that they're growing apart from you. It means that they're setting a new tradition in the family for future generations in your family. And so I think helping them understand, and also helping them understand that they can financially afford college. Because, I also had the mother who said, our family can't afford to support college. What do you mean you're going to college? And see, I had to learn about Pell Grants. I had to learn that, yeah, there is loans, but what is the difference between a subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan? What does that mean if you don't get a job right away? What is work study? TRIO's very big on teaching students about work study, because what that's doing, along with giving them some income, a stipend, it's teaching them how to be in a work environment in college where it's very structured and they can get feedback. Okay, this is what's expected of you in the workplace. You're going to have set hours. You're going to have a supervisor. What does the supervisor do? What does it mean if the supervisor is going to evaluate you? So teaching them about what it means to be in a work setting, but in a safe way. And college work study is a way to do that. So we work a lot with students on work study. And then from there, I have a lot of students that say, well, Barbara, I want to apply for this job on campus. I don't have a resume. What do? I don't know how to put a resume together. So then that leads into discussions about, this is some templates of resumes. This is what you want to think about for a resume. This is what you want to think about for a cover letter. So the whole concept of work study, or even just working on campus, if you're not eligible for work study, you can qualify for some jobs that are paid right through the department. We teach them about resume writing and cover letters.
That's amazing. One of the things when we spoke a few weeks ago, you said one of the first things I have to do is tell them they have rights. Is you come in, you have no idea. What are some of these rights that you go over with them?
Well, they have the right to be who they are. And I think understanding that, we have the programs like the Title IX, if someone is abusive to you because of your social identity, you don't have to sit there and hold it close and blame yourself. That was part of my issues when I was in school, the K-12 system. I didn't know I had rights when someone was insulting who I was as a woman of color. What college is about is teaching them that you do have some rights, and no one has a right to insult who you are or who you identify as. The right to an education. I mean, a lot of the students come in and feel like, I don't know if I deserve this or not. I don't know what should I be taking this financial aid? Do I have a right without working for money to be doing this? But kind of teaching them that history of education. And once again, TRIO has that wonderful history, as we just mentioned, of how it's evolved through the 60s about equity and opportunities. With my students that identify with disabilities, our disability resource office talks to them about, now when you go out into the workplace, what is your rights? You don't have to divulge everything about yourself during the interview. So how do you protect your rights? And then once you get hired, how do you get the accommodations that you may need in order to do the job? So college is a lot about, or the work that we do with TRIO in combination with our campus partners is about helping them understand who they are and how they protect or how they advocate for who they are when they get into the workplace, or even right here on campus. Unfortunately, we have our incidents on campus, and letting students know that they don't have to sit and tolerate that and keep it inside and blame themselves. They have a right to be authentic. They have a right to be who they are. I hope that helps answer your question.
No, that's very good. That's very good. When we spoke before, particularly since COVID, post-COVID, you said there's so much, particularly first generation students, mental health issues. They feel, like you said, I brought it upon myself. It's my fault. I didn't have this opportunity. I don't know what I'm doing. So how has the mental health part changed? Mental health assistance.
Yeah, the mental health part is a lot of, and there's where the success coaching comes into play, because we don't only just talk about being successful in the classroom, we talk about what's your self-care like here? What are you doing to take care of yourself? And that includes mental health. You know, I have students who come in that they need to sit with someone just to be able to go through and do a paper because they're nervous about what that involves and don't know how to break it down in different steps. And that brings on anxiety. A lot of times students haven't had the history of having people that are comfortable going to therapy in their family. So we start talking about demystifying what therapy is about, understanding how therapy can be supportive to you. And sometimes it incorporates also talking a little bit about medications and how medications can help with depression and anxiety. One of the things that we do with TRIO, and many of our, not just us with TRIO, because some of our other campus partners do this too, is you have students who get really aligned with you and you build that relationship with them. So, you know, I've walked students over to the counseling center so that they know that they have this sense of presence with them that's helping them fill out that paperwork, helping them get connected to a counselor. And I see that as one of the roles that we do to kind of demystify that process, to let them know there's someone walking with me here that's supporting this, that's helping me understand this process a little bit different. I'm not saying that right away. You know, I have some students that say, I'm going to have to think about this. I'm not sure I want to do this. And so we continue to kind of go back and visit the topic. We also try to bring in a speaker. We started last year, we brought in Richard Taylor Jr., who would be a great person to do a podcast with, but he also has his own podcast, and he's a TRIO alum from the Chicago area. And he talks about, he has a book, The 30 Days of Mental Health. And, you know, down to earth, comes in, talks about mental health. He himself struggled with mental health in college, had a couple of suicide attempts. Richard goes from the philosophy that, and I agree with him, we can't not talk about suicide because suicide happens. And if we're not talking about it, you know, we take the chance that we may not save lives. That's his philosophy, and I agree with him. But we had him come and speak, and he did some training with some of our campus partners. So what we're kind of trying to develop here with our TRIO program is that we're going to try each semester, each year. We do with our counseling center, they come over and do workshops. So that's a chance for them, the students, to come and meet the counselors without, quote unquote, having a one-on-one appointment with them. So right. We had a counselor talk about, I have a couple of topics here. One counselor talked about real talk, about being overwhelmed in college. So one of our counselors came. Another counselor, who's the director, came and talked about the 8 dimensions of wellness and health. So we kind of weave it into our curriculum here at TRIO. So that gives them a chance to meet the counseling staff without having their individual appointments. And then we sometimes hear, oh, I remember that counselor, you know, I wouldn't mind, you know, going over and maybe having a session with them and seeing what it's like. So kind of planting and nurturing the seed.
Exactly. Once they determine, well, growing up, you go to see a counselor if you're crazy. I'm not crazy. And it's a normalized, and it's wonderful that people like you are bringing that up, because a lot of us hold that inside for years and years and years. Wow. You told me a story, Barbara. You had a young woman who came to see you in the beginning, spoke no English, and said, I'm not going to make it. How am I going to get there? And then she came back to see you a few years later. Tell that story.
Oh, yes. When I was working at Berkshire Community College, I was with a program that wasn't a TRIO program, but it's equivalent to one. It was Project Link, and that was funded by the state of Massachusetts. And basically what that program did is that was a very frontline program that went to the adult basic education providers and the English second language providers and recruited students to come to Berkshire Community College to introduce them to college life once again. They would come and they would take the entry level core requirement for math and English. And it would be a part of Project Link, and that would give them their initial college credit to get started. They would have a college identity class. And so that student was a part of Project Link, and she didn't speak any English at that time. So she was very, very hesitant of what am I going to do? What's going to happen here? And she got connected with because as a part of Project Link, they had an English course that really started second language learners with understanding English and learning English and what they were going to have to do to move to the next steps. And that got Martha going. And then she was in the college identity class where we did things on study skills. And I spent a lot of with my English second language learners, I did a lot of office hours with them and going through, we had some readings in the class and going through the readings with them one-on-one. And it was really about jump starting that they could succeed in college. Well, Martha excelled, a long story short, she went through Project Link. She continued to forge ahead at Berkshire Community College. Now, she didn't do full-time right away. She started with 1 or 2 courses to get started. And now she's fluent in English. She's now finishing up her psychology degree at BCC and is thinking about coming her associates at BCC and thinking about coming here to finish up for bachelor's. She does her own radio show now in the Berkshires. It's very popular. And a lot of her radio show is about talking about the Berkshires and refugees and English second language learners. And so she's doing quite well now. But it just shows a lot with Martha is that Martha saw people being invested in her, including the English second language program that she was a part of. When I went out to do recruitment, they were working with her one-on-one too, and they had her in the classes. So she saw people invested in her, and it raised her self-esteem and it helped her move forward. But it was wonderful to see her. I had taken a journey away from the Berkshires, so I got to see her as I was coming back for this position in Trio, and just to see the growth that has happened in her life and will continue to happen in her life, I'm sure.
That is such a powerful story, is when you see that someone believes in you and someone is going to say, yes, you can, instead of you can't. That's so powerful. Now, Barbara, one thing that was interesting is the Berkshire is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
4 hours from Boston. Beautiful area, but not exactly a hotbed for jobs. So how is your program helping your students ease from this beautiful rural community into probably the Boston urban area?
Yeah, well, there's 2 distinct populations that we have. The one way that we do it is through internships, because we know students who have internships stand the best chance of getting job opportunities after they graduate. And then also, like I told you, through college work study, just getting them used to being in a work environment. Now, we have 2 distinct populations. We have a population that hasn't left the Berkshires, that hasn't really seen the world outside the Berkshires. And then we have populations coming in that are from Boston, that are from Albany, New York, that are from the cities. So what we're trying to do, and we're still kind of piecing some things together, is we're trying to do a little bit more field trips, and field trips meaning academic field trips, where they get to go out to like a Worcester, Massachusetts, or once, as you mentioned, Boston, Massachusetts, go to a career fair, see what a career fair is like in the cities. Taking them just on field trips where They get to experience the culture, the environments of cities for those that are born and raised here. Also getting them connected to alumni who have made that transition so that they can see someone once again who successfully made that transition from the Berkshires to a more urban area. Our students that come in from the urban areas, they definitely do struggle with transition here because we have an environment where there's not a lot of diversity. Recently in North Adams, unfortunately, we had the movie theater shut down. So just the thing of having a local movie theater that students can go to, they have to commute over to Pittsfield, which is at least a good 30, 45 minutes from here. And if you don't have a car, you know, the bus is not easily like they're used to in the city, having public transportation available. So we're still working on, I have to be totally honest, we're still working on strategies for our students that come here from the urban areas, because they do talk about the struggles. A lot of it is, once again, trying to attract professionals that represent the identities of the students that are coming here from the urban areas. Because once again, it helps them to see people who look like them that are here, that are having a good life here in the Berkshires. And honestly, you know, Frank, we're in a committee right now that's working on, it's called the Student Enrollment Management Committee. But part of the charge is how do we get professionals and professionals of color to stay here long term? Because that's going to help our students of color and students of many identities be able to see someone who's succeeding here in the Berkshires and has had that found that sense of life and community.
Exactly. It was quite a challenge going from little Dunkirk, New York, where I was, to Albany or to Buffalo, and just the traffic alone. You're like, oh my God, how do you navigate this? It's crazy. Well, Barbara, we're just about out of time. What last thoughts do you want to leave with the audience around the world today?
You know, we go back to that motto. We've already talked a little bit about how TRIO works, but being strong at your strongest when you ask for help. It really is something that's a lifelong mission, a lifelong charge. I grew up in a family with lots of pride, and they didn't want to ask for help, and that left them in situations that if we would have just reached out, we would have had lots of support and been able to overcome some challenges that were a lot more difficult because we didn't ask for help. But I always use this example with the students, since I am from Kansas and the Little Apple. You know, I'm from the place where the Wizard of Oz is very important. And what were they saying? You know, if only I had a mind, if only I had courage, if only I had a heart, if only I could go home. And what did they learn at the end? That one did have courage, one did have a mind, one did have a heart, and one had the ability to go home. All they had to do is look within and believe. And that is, I think, a significant message from that story. And I think that that's the heart of what TRIO gets at, is looking inside yourself and learning to believe and learning to have that, the ability to see other people, but also the ability to see yourself and see the possibilities for yourself.
Love that story. You're like the wizard. You point out, yes, you do. Yes, you can. Yes, you are. And it's a wonderful. So, Barbara, after this, a number of people are going to want to talk to you. So, how do they reach you?
They can reach me several ways. They can reach me via email, and it's real easy, barbara.baker@mcla.edu, or phone number is 413-662-5078.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will also be when this goes live. We'll have all that information in there on how to get a hold of Barbara. As I said, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Barbara Baker one more time for just this. This is just amazing how her program and people like Barbara help you get into the room so you can change your life. You have to get in the room. Now you can see this show on my podcast, which is called Life Altering Events, and my YouTube channel, which is called Frank Zakari, because I'm not the most original. And it'll also appear on Parade Deck. I will send links to Barbara, and she'll put it everywhere she posts things in her world. If you use my YouTube channel, please subscribe. And as I do every week, let me leave you with this. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Barbara showed us where many of those rocks are. Join us again next week. We get into another life-altering event. Barbara, again, thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate being here, Frank. Thank you for giving me a voice on your podcast.
Thank you.